Chapter 1. The Invitation to Ashwood Manor. The rain pattered softly against the windows of Hercule Poirot's London flat, a rhythmic counterpoint to the crackle of the fire in the hearth. Poirot sat at his polished mahogany desk, his small, meticulous hands arranging a stack of correspondence with the precision of a jeweller setting gems. His valet, George, had just delivered the morning's post, and among the usual invitations and bills lay an envelope that piqued Poirot's curiosity. It was of heavy cream stock, sealed with a wax crest depicting a flame encircled by thorns. The address was written in an elegant looping hand, Monsieur Hercule Poirot, Esquire, London. Poirot's moustache twitched as he sliced the envelope open with a silver letter opener, his green eyes narrowing with interest. The letter read, "My dear Monsieur Poirot, your reputation as a man of unparalleled intellect precedes you. I find myself in need of such a mind at Ashwood Manor, my estate in Kent, this coming weekend. A matter of great delicacy has arisen concerning a family heirloom, the Opal Flame, a gem said to carry a curse of betrayal. I fear its shadow looms over my household. Your presence would do much to set my mind at ease. Join us for a small gathering of guests. Discretion is paramount. A car will collect you at 10 a.m. on Friday. And I trust you will not disappoint. Yours sincerely." Lady Eleanor Voss Poirot leaned back in his chair, the letter held delicately between his fingers. "The Opal Flame," he murmured, his Belgian accent curling around the words like smoke. "A gem with a curse, n'est-ce pas? And Lady Voss, she writes with the urgency of one who fears more than she reveals." He rose, pacing the room with the measured steps of a cat. Lady Eleanor Voss was a name he knew vaguely, a widow of considerable wealth, reclusive since the death of her husband, Lord Reginald Voss, a decade prior. Ashwood Manor was said to be a labyrinth of stone and secrets. Its gardens, as famous as its mistress, was enigmatic. But it was the mention of the Opal Flame that stirred Poirot's imagination. He had heard whispers of the gem in his younger days, a stone of unearthly beauty, its fiery heart said to glow in darkness, and its history stained with treachery. "George!" Poirot called, turning toward the door. His valet appeared promptly, his face a mask of polite efficiency. "Yes, sir." "Prepare my travelling case for Friday. I shall be visiting Kent. And George, ensure my grey suit, the one with the subtle pinstripe, is pressed. One must appear impeccable when unravelling the secrets of a cursed jewel. No." "Very good, sir," George replied, a faint glimmer of amusement in his eyes. "Shall I include your notebook for observations?" Poirot waved a hand dismissively. "The notebook, oui, but the true record is here." He tapped his temple, where his little grey cells resided. "This Opal Flame, George, it is not merely a gem. It is a magnet for human folly, greed, envy, betrayal. And where such passions gather, Hercule Poirot shall find the truth." As George retreated to make preparations, Poirot returned to the letter, rereading it with a frown. The phrase "a matter of great delicacy" was too vague, too carefully chosen. Lady Voss was hiding something, and Poirot suspected the weekend at Ashwood Manor would be anything but restful. The rain continued to fall, and in the quiet of his flat, Poirot's mind began to weave a tapestry of possibilities. A cursed gem, a reclusive widow, a house full of strangers. and somewhere, in the glow of the opal flame, a betrayal waiting to be uncovered. He smiled faintly. "Allons-y," he whispered to himself. "The game, it begins." Chapter 2. The Gathering of Suspects. The Rolls-Royce sent by Lady Voss glided through the misty Kent countryside, its engine a soft purr against the crunch of gravel. Hercule Poirot sat in the back, his gloved hands resting on his cane, his eyes scanning the rolling hills that gave way to the imposing silhouette of Ashwood Manor. The estate loomed like a Gothic sentinel, its ivy-clad towers and arched windows hinting at secrets older than the oaks that lined the drive. "Magnifique, yet foreboding," Poirot murmured, adjusting his perfectly knotted tie. "A house such as this, it holds its truths tightly, n'est-ce pas?" The car stopped before the manor's grand entrance, where a butler, with a face like weathered parchment, awaited. "Monsieur Poirot," he intoned, bowing stiffly. "Lady Voss awaits you in the drawing-room. I am Grayson, at your service." Poirot followed Grayson through a cavernous hall adorned with portraits of stern-faced Voss ancestors, their eyes seeming to track his progress. The air carried the scent of polished wood and faded roses, and a distant clock ticked like a heartbeat. At last they reached the drawing-room, where a fire crackled, and a group of strangers turned to appraise the newcomer. Lady Eleanor Voss rose from a high-backed chair, her silver hair swept into an elegant chignon, her emerald gown catching the firelight. She was perhaps 60, with a regal bearing and eyes that flickered with unease. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice smooth but taut, "your presence honours us. Allow me to introduce my guests." She gestured to the assembled company, and Poirot's sharp gaze catalogued each face with the precision of a watchmaker. First was Cedric Voss, Lady Voss's nephew, a lean man in his 30s with slicked-back hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His tailored suit was impeccable, but his fingers toyed nervously with a gold cigarette case. "Charmed, I'm sure," Cedric drawled, his tone dripping with practised charm. Next was Miss Clara Henshaw, the governess to Lady Voss's young ward, who was absent from the gathering. Clara was pale and slight, her mousy brown hair pinned tightly, her eyes darting like a trapped bird's. "A pleasure, sir," she whispered, barely audible, clutching a worn book to her chest. Colonel Rupert Hargreaves stood by the fireplace, his military posture rigid, his moustache as bristling as his temper. His ruddy face suggested a fondness for brandy, and his booming voice confirmed it. "Poirot, eh? Heard you're a clever sort. Hope you're not here to stir up trouble," he said, half joking, half challenging. Lillian Duval, a flamboyant actress of indeterminate age, lounged on a chaise, her scarlet dress a stark contrast to the room's muted tones. Her laughter was like champagne, effervescent but calculated. "Oh, Monsieur Poirot, I've read of your exploits. Tell me, do you ever play the romantic hero?" she purred, batting her lashes. Finally, Mr. Ernest Finch, a jeweller with a nervous tic and wire-rimmed spectacles, hovered near a display case that stood conspicuously empty. His hands fluttered as he spoke. "An honour, monsieur. I was to appraise the Opal Flame, but, well—" He trailed off, glancing at Lady Voss. Poirot's moustache twitched. "The Opal Flame, it is not here, oui? Perhaps, Lady Voss, you might enlighten Hercule Poirot as to this delicacy you mentioned?" The room stilled, the crackle of the fire suddenly loud. Lady Voss's lips tightened, but she nodded. The opal flame, a gem of extraordinary beauty, has been in my family for generations. It was to be displayed tonight, but this morning I found it gone, stolen from its case. She gestured to the empty display, its velvet lining stark under the chandelier's glow. A murmur rippled through the guests. Cedric's cigarette case snapped shut. Clara's book slipped slightly in her grasp. Hargreaves snorted, muttering about dashed incompetence. Lillian's laugh was sharp, almost mocking. Finch mopped his brow with a handkerchief. "Stolen, you say?" Poirot's voice was calm, but his eyes gleamed like polished jade. "And yet you invite Hercule Poirot to a weekend of leisure. Curieux. Tell me, who had access to this gem?" "Only those in this room," Lady Voss replied, her gaze sweeping the group. "And Grayson, of course, but he has served me loyally for 30 years. "Naturellement," Poirot said, stroking his moustache. "Then we have a puzzle, médiathèque, ami, a gem that glows with a curse, a thief among us, and a hostess who fears more than she admits. Fear not, for Poirot shall uncover the truth." As he spoke, a faint glow flickered beyond the window, a strange, iridescent shimmer in the darkened garden. Clara gasped, and Finch dropped his handkerchief. Before anyone could speak, a piercing scream tore through the night, echoing from the grounds. Poirot's head tilted, his expression one of serene determination. "Eh bien," he said softly, "it seems the opal flame has begun to reveal its secrets." Chapter 3. The Glow in the Dark. The scream hung in the air like a shattered note, silencing the drawing-room. Hercule Poirot's eyes flicked to the window, where the strange, iridescent glow had vanished as swiftly as it appeared. The guests froze, their faces a gallery of shock and suspicion. Lady Voss's hand gripped the arm of her chair, her knuckles white. Cedric Voss's cigarette dangled, forgotten between his fingers. Only Poirot moved, striding to the window with the calm precision of a man accustomed to chaos. "Mes amis, remain here," he commanded, his voice steady but firm. "Grayson, fetch a lantern. We must investigate this disturbance." The butler nodded, his stoic mask unbroken, and hurried from the room. Colonel Hargreaves blustered, "Nonsense, Poirot. I'll not sit idle while some ruffian prowls the grounds." He made for the door, but Poirot's raised hand stopped him. "Non, Colonel. Impetuosity clouds the mind. Hercule Poirot requires clarity, not commotion. Stay, s'il vous plaît." Hargreaves grumbled but relented, his moustache quivering. Lillian, Duval, ever the actress, clutched her throat dramatically. "A scream like that! It's positively chilling. What if the curse is real?" Her eyes sparkled with a mix of fear and thrill. Clara Henshaw shrank further into her chair, her book now clutched like a shield. "It sounded like someone in pain," she whispered. Ernest Finch, the jeweller, stammered, "Perhaps it's just a fox. They scream, don't they?" Poirot's moustache twitched. "A fox, Monsieur Finch." "Peut-être, but a fox does not glow in the dark, non?" His gaze lingered on Finch, who flushed and looked away. Grayson returned with a lantern, its beam cutting through the room's dimness. Poirot took it and beckoned the butler to follow. "Lady Voss, lock this door behind us. Admit no one until I return," she nodded, her composure fraying at the edges. "Be careful, Monsieur Poirot." The night air was damp and heavy as Poirot and Grayson stepped into the garden. The lantern cast long shadows across manicured hedges and stone paths, the silence broken only by the distant hoot of an owl. Poirot's polished shoes crunched softly as he scanned the ground, his eyes darting like a hawk's. "There," he said, pointing to a patch of earth near a rose trellis. The soil was disturbed, as if trodden by hurried feet. He knelt, heedless of his immaculate suit, and examined a faint smear of mud. "Interessant. This is fresh. And here?" His fingers brushed a single petal, torn from a rose, its edge bruised. "A struggle, perhaps." Grayson's lantern wavered slightly. "Sir, the scream came from this direction, near the old fountain." They pressed on, the path winding toward a marble fountain, its basin dry and cracked. As they approached, Poirot's sharp ears caught a faint rustle in the shrubs. He raised the lantern, revealing a figure slumped against the fountain's base, a young woman in a maid's uniform, her face pale, her apron stained with dirt. "Mon Dieu!" Poirot murmured, kneeling beside her. He pressed 2 fingers to her wrist, then exhaled. "She lives, Grayson! Fetch help at once!" As the butler ran back to the manor, Poirot examined the maid, noting a shallow cut on her forehead and a torn sleeve. Her eyelids fluttered, and she moaned softly. The light, it burned, betrayed. Her words were a feverish mumble before she lapsed back into unconsciousness. Poirot's brow furrowed. "The light," she says. "The opal flame, perhaps." He searched the ground nearby, his lantern revealing a glint in the grass. A single opal, bead no larger than a pea, its surface shimmering with an eerie, fiery hue. He pocketed it carefully, his mind racing. By the time Grayson returned with 2 footmen and a blanket, the maid was stirring. Poirot stood, brushing his hands. "Take her to the manor gently. She must be questioned when she wakes. And Grayson, say nothing of this to the guests, not yet." Back in the drawing-room, the tension was palpable. Lady Voss unlocked the door, her eyes searching Poirot's face. "What happened, monsieur?" "A maid, injured but alive," Poirot said, his tone measured. "She spoke of a light that burned. Tell me, Lady Voss, have any of your staff reported seeing this glow before?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "No, but the servants whisper of the opal flame's curse. They say it glows when betrayal is near." Cedric snorted, lighting a fresh cigarette. "Superstitious rot. Probably some poacher startled the girl. Or the thief," Lillian said, her voice sly. "Hiding their tracks, perhaps." Clara's eyes widened, and Finch fidgeted, his glasses slipping down his nose. Hargreaves pounded a fist on the mantel. "Enough of this! Poirot, what's your game? You've got that look, spit it out!" Poirot smiled faintly, his hands clasped behind his back. "My game, Colonel, is observation. The maid saw something or someone in the garden. The glow, it is no mere fancy. And this—" He produced the opal bead, holding it to the light, where it gleamed like a tiny flame. This was near her, a clue, oui, but to what? The guests leaned forward, their faces a mix of curiosity and dread. Before Poirot could continue, Grayson appeared at the door, his expression grim. "Monsieur Poirot, the maid. She's awake, but she's saying wild things. She insists the Opal Flame is alive, and that it spoke to her." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Vraiment? Then we must listen to what this flame has to say." Chapter 4. For the Curse of the Opal. Flame Hercule Poirot stood in the dimly lit corridor outside the servants' quarters, his polished shoes silent on the worn rug. The air was thick with the scent of linseed oil and anxiety. Behind the door, the injured maid, whose name he had learned was Mary, murmured feverishly. Poirot's hand rested lightly on the opal bead in his pocket, its cool surface a reminder of the mystery's growing complexity. Grayson opened the door, revealing a small room where Mary lay on a narrow bed, her forehead bandaged, her eyes wide, with a mix of fear and confusion. A stout housekeeper hovered nearby, wringing her hands. Poirot stepped forward, his demeanour gentle but commanding. "Mademoiselle Mary," he began, his Belgian accent softening the words, "I am Hercule Poirot. You have suffered a shock, oui, but your words may light the path to truth. Tell me, what did you see in the garden?" Mary's gaze darted to the housekeeper, then back to Poirot. Her voice was a hoarse whisper. "It was glowing, sir, like fire but cold. It moved, I swear it, and it spoke. Said I'd be betrayed, just like the others." Her hands twisted the blanket. "I ran, but something hit me, and then darkness." Poirot's moustache quivered slightly. "Interessant. This glow, where did you see it precisely? And the voice, what was its tone?" "Near the fountain," she said, trembling. "The voice was low, like a man's, but wrong, not human." She shuddered, and the housekeeper clucked disapprovingly. "Enough of this nonsense," the housekeeper muttered. "She's addled from the blow." Poirot raised a hand. "No, madame. The mind, even in distress, sees what it sees. Mary, rest now. You have been most helpful." He turned to Grayson. "Ensure she is guarded. No visitors without my permission." As they stepped into the corridor, Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The Opal Flame speaks, Grayson. Or so someone wishes us to believe. Curieux, non?" Back in the drawing-room, the guests had dispersed to their rooms for the night. But Lady Voss awaited Poirot by the fire, her emerald gown now exchanged for a sombre black shawl. She rose, her face pale but resolute. "Monsieur Poirot, you've spoken to the maid. What does this mean? Is the curse real?" Poirot settled into a chair, his hands steepled. "A curse, Lady Voss, is often a story told to cloak human misdeeds. Tell me of this Opal Flame, its history, its tragedies, the truth, s'il vous plaît." She hesitated, then sat, her fingers tracing the edge of her shawl. "The Opal Flame came to the Voss family in 1720, a gift from a Mughal prince to my ancestor, Sir Edmund Voss. It was said to be a fragment of a sacred stone, its glow a sign of divine favour, or wrath. Every owner has met misfortune. Sir Edmund was betrayed by his brother, who stole the gem and died in a duel. In 1803, Lady Beatrice Voss was ruined when her husband gambled it away, only to be murdered by his creditor, my own mother." Her voice faltered. "She wore it the night she vanished, never to return." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And you, Lady Voss?" What betrayal do you fear?" She stiffened, her lips a thin line. "I fear nothing, monsieur, but the gem was to be sold to settle obligations. Its theft threatens my family's future." "Obligations," Poirot repeated softly. "A motive, perhaps. Who knew of the sale?" "Only Mr. Finch, the jeweller, and Cedric, my nephew. The others may have suspected." Poirot nodded, filing the information away. "Merci, Lady Voss. Now, I must ask, where were you when the scream was heard?" Her eyes flashed. "In the library alone, reviewing accounts. You suspect me, monsieur?" "I suspect everyone," Poirot said with a faint smile. "It is my method." As she retired, Poirot lingered, his gaze falling on the empty display case. He examined its lock, noting faint scratches around the keyhole, too precise for an amateur. "A professional, or one who wishes to appear so," he murmured. The next morning, breakfast was a strained affair. Cedric lounged with a smirk, sipping coffee. Colonel Hargreaves glowered over his eggs, muttering about damned theatrics. Lillian Duval, radiant in a sapphire dress, regaled the table with tales of her latest role, though her eyes flicked to Poirot too often. Clara Henshaw sat silently, her book unopened, while Finch dropped his fork twice, his nerves fraying. Poirot sipped his tisane, observing the interplay. "Mes amis," he said at last, "the Opal Flame is more than a gem. It is a mirror, reflecting the desires and fears of those around it. Tell me, what does it reflect in you?" Cedric laughed, sharply. "Money, old chap! Isn't that what it's always about?" "Honour," Hargreaves barked. "A man's word, not some cursed bauble." Lillian's smile was coy. "Beauty, monsieur, and the power it wields." Clara whispered, "Safety. It could change everything." Finch stammered, "Knowledge. Its craftsmanship is unparalleled." Poirot's gaze lingered on each, his little grey cells whirring. Before he could press further, Grayson appeared, his face ashen. "Monsieur Poirot, the maid, Mary, she's gone. Her room is empty, and there's blood on the floor." The table erupted in gasps. Poirot rose, his expression grim. "Eh bien, the flame burns brighter, and the betrayals deepen. Let us see what secrets Mary has taken with her." Chapter 5. A tangled web of alibis. The morning sun filtered weakly through the tall windows of Ashwood Manor's dining room, doing little to dispel the chill that had settled over the guests. The news of Mary's disappearance, and the blood on her floor, hung like a storm cloud. Hercule Poirot stood at the head of the table, his small frame commanding the room as he surveyed the assembled suspects. His green eyes gleamed with the intensity of a predator, though his voice was as smooth as velvet. "Mes amis," he began, his Belgian accent curling around each word. "A maid is missing, a gem is stolen, and blood stains the ground. The Opal Flame, it seems, casts a long shadow. To find the truth, Hercule Poirot must know where each of you was last night, after the scream in the garden. Speak plainly, for lies are like cobwebs, fragile, yet they entangle." The guests exchanged uneasy glances. Cedric Voss leaned back, lighting a cigarette with a practised flick. "Really, Poirot, this is a bit theatrical, isn't it? I was in my room, smoking and reading. Alone, naturally. Poirot's moustache twitched. Naturellement, Monsieur Voss. And did you hear nothing? No footsteps, no cries? Cedric shrugged, exhaling a plume of smoke. Not a thing. These walls are thick as a vault. Colonel Hargreaves snorted. His ruddy face flushed. I was in the billiard-room, having a nightcap. Heard the scream, of course, but thought it was some servant's hysterics. Stayed put until you returned, Poirot. Alone, Colonel? Poirot asked, his tone deceptively mild. Hargreaves bristled. Of course, a man doesn't need company for a brandy. Lillian Duval, resplendent in a violet shawl, leaned forward, her smile coy. I was in my room, Monsieur Poirot, practising lines for my next role. The scream startled me, but I assumed it was, well, a lover's quarrel among the staff. Her eyes flicked to Cedric, who smirked faintly. Clara Henshaw clutched her book, her voice barely audible. I was in the nursery, checking on little Emily, Lady Voss's ward. She was restless, so I stayed until she slept. I didn't leave. Poirot's gaze softened, but only slightly. And the scream, Mademoiselle Henshaw? Did it reach the nursery? Clara nodded, her lips trembling. Yes, but I thought it was outside. I was too frightened to look. Ernest Finch, the jeweller, mopped his brow with a handkerchief. I was in the library, examining some of Lady Voss's antique jewellery catalogues. For research, you see. I heard the scream, but stayed where I was. Books are safer than gardens at night. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Interessant, Monsieur Finch. And did you find anything illuminating in these catalogues? Finch flushed. No, just historical notes. Nothing about the Opal Flame. Lady Voss, seated at the table's far end, spoke last, her voice steady but strained. As I told you, Monsieur Poirot, I was in the library earlier, but after the scream, I returned to my rooms. I heard nothing more. Poirot paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. Eh bien, a symphony of solitude, yet someone was in the garden with Mary. Someone left blood in her room. Let us test these alibis, oui? Grayson, the butler, appeared, his face impassive. Yes, sir? Confirm, s'il vous plaît, the movements of the household last night. Servants see what masters do not. Grayson nodded. I was in the servants' hall after escorting you to the garden, sir. However, one of the footmen, Thomas, reported seeing a figure near the library windows around midnight, after the scream. He could not identify them. A murmur rippled through the group. Finch's glasses slipped and he fumbled to adjust them. Lillian's smile faltered, while Cedric's eyes narrowed. Poirot turned to Clara. Mademoiselle Henshaw, you are devoted to the child, oui? Yet the nursery is far from the garden. Did you perhaps venture elsewhere to soothe your nerves? Clara's cheeks flushed. No, I swear, I stayed with Emily. Hargreaves pounded the table. This is absurd. You're fishing, Poirot. What about the jeweller? Skulking in the library, eh? Convenient place to plan a theft. Finch sputtered. I'm no thief. I was invited to appraise the gem, not steal it. Enough. Lady Voss's voice cut through the din. Monsieur Poirot, what of the blood? Is Mary dead? Poirot's expression was unreadable. The blood, it is fresh, but not abundant. A wound, perhaps not a murder yet. Mary may have fled or been taken. But why? To silence her, or to hide her knowledge of the Opal Flame? He produced the opal bead from his pocket, holding it to the light. This, found near the fountain, suggests the gem, or something like it, was there. But the scratches on the display case lock, they are too precise, too deliberate. A professional's work or a clever imitation. Cedric laughed harshly. So, we're all thieves now? Or is it the curse, Poirot? Maybe the gem ran off on its own. Poirot's smile was thin. Mockery, Monsieur Voss, does not untangle lies. I see connections where you see chaos. For instance, he turned to Lillian. Madame Duval, your room overlooks the garden. Did your rehearsal keep you from the window? Lillian's eyes widened, then narrowed. I told you I was practicing. But yes, I glanced out after the scream. I saw nothing but shadows. Shadows, Poirot repeated softly. And yet shadows have shapes. We shall see. As the guests dispersed, Poirot lingered, his mind sifting through the web of alibis. Cedric's nonchalance hid a calculating edge. Hargreaves's bluster felt rehearsed. Lillian's charm was a mask, and Clara's timidity seemed almost too perfect. Finch's nerves betrayed more than incompetence, and Lady Voss's composure was fraying. He approached Grayson, who stood by the door. The library windows, Grayson. Have them examined for fingerprints, and the catalogues Monsieur Finch studied. Bring them to me. Grayson bowed. At once, sir. Poirot's gaze drifted to the portrait above the fireplace. A stern-faced man, presumably Lord Voss, holding a glowing opal. The painting's eyes seemed to follow him, and for a moment Poirot felt the weight of the manor's secrets. A sudden crash echoed from upstairs, followed by a muffled cry. Poirot's head snapped up, his cane tapping the floor. Mon Dieu, the web tightens. Let us see who has stumbled. Chapter 6. The Locked Room. The crash reverberated through Ashwood Manor, a jarring note that sent the guests scrambling from the dining room. Hercule Poirot moved swiftly despite his small stature, his cane a steady rhythm on the oak floor as he led the charge up the grand staircase. The cry had come from the east wing, where the guest rooms were housed, and Poirot's sharp ears detected a faint whimper as he neared the source. "Vite! Vite!" he urged, his voice cutting through the chaos. Grayson, ever the shadow, followed close behind, while Lady Voss and the others trailed, their faces a mix of dread and curiosity. The sound led to a heavy oak door at the end of the corridor, its brass handle gleaming under the flickering sconces. The door was shut, and a faint scratching came from within, like nails on wood. Poirot tried the handle. Locked. "Whose room is this?" he demanded, turning to Lady Voss. Her face paled. "Mr. Finch's!" Poirot rapped sharply on the door. "Monsieur Finch, it is Hercule Poirot. Open at once!" No answer came, only the eerie scratching. Colonel Hargreaves shouldered forward, his military instincts kicking in. "Stand back, Poirot. I'll break it down." "Non, Colonel." Poirot's voice was a whip-crack. "The scene, it must remain undisturbed. Grayson, a key, s'il vous plaît." Grayson produced a master key from his pocket, his hands steady despite the tension. The lock clicked, and Poirot pushed the door open, revealing a scene that drew gasps from the group. Ernest Finch lay sprawled on the floor, his wire-rimmed spectacles askew, his face frozen in a rictus of terror. Blood pooled beneath his head, seeping into the Persian rug. In his clenched fist was a fragment of opal, its fiery glow dimmed but unmistakable. The room's single window was bolted shut, the curtains undisturbed. A toppled chair and scattered papers suggested a struggle, but the door had been locked from the inside, the key still in the lock. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, kneeling beside the body. His gloved fingers probed gently, noting the wound, a single precise blow to the temple. Dead, perhaps an hour. The blood is still fresh. Lillian Duval clutched Cedric's arm, her theatrical gasp barely masking her fascination. Murdered! In a locked room! It's like something from one of my plays. Cedric's eyes narrowed, his cigarette unlit for once. This is no play, Lillian. That's the Opal Flame he's holding, isn't it? The thief, caught by his own greed? Clara Henshaw swayed, her book slipping to the floor. It's the curse. It has to be. First Mary, now Mr. Finch. Hargreaves snorted, though his bravado was strained. Curse my foot. Someone bashed his head in, and I'd wager it's one of us. Lady Voss stood rigid, her shawl clutched tightly. Monsieur Poirot, how could this happen? The door was locked, the window bolted. Poirot rose, his expression serene, but his eyes blazing. Précisément, Lady Voss. A locked room is not an obstacle to Hercule Poirot, but a challenge. The method. It is clever, but not invisible. Observe. He moved to the window, examining the bolts with a magnifying glass from his pocket. No tampering here. The window is secure. He turned to the door, inspecting the lock and key. The dear key. It is in place, yet the scratches on the lock, they match those on the display case. Interessant. He scanned the room, his gaze lingering on a small fireplace. Its grate cold. A faint smudge of soot caught his eye, and he crouched, retrieving a tiny thread of scarlet fabric snagged on the hearth's edge. Et voilà! A clue! Perhaps our murderer was not so careful. Lillian's hand flew to her scarlet scarf, but she recovered quickly, laughing. Really, Monsieur Poirot, that could belong to anyone. Red is terribly fashionable. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Peut-être, Madame Duval, but fashion, like motive, leaves traces. He turned to Grayson. Will summon the local police, but they will find little without Poirot's guidance. And Grayson, search the manor for Mary. She is the key to this puzzle. As Grayson departed, Poirot addressed the guests, his voice low but commanding. Monsieur, Amice, a man is dead, and the Opal Flame is no longer merely stolen. It is a witness to murder. Each of you has a secret, a reason to wish Monsieur Finch silenced. Speak now, or the little grey cells of Hercule Poirot will uncover what you hide. Cedric's smirk faltered. You're barking up the wrong tree, Poirot. Finch was a nervous wreck, probably caught the thief and paid for it. Or he was the thief, Hargreaves growled, and someone settled the score. Clara's voice was a whisper. He was kind to me, asked about Emily. Why would anyone? Poirot's gaze softened, but only for a moment. Kindness, mademoiselle, can be a mask. Monsieur Finch knew something of the Opal Flame, something worth killing for. Lady Voss stepped forward, her voice trembling. Monsieur Poirot, I beg you, find the truth. This house, it cannot bear another tragedy. Poirot nodded, his eyes fixed on the opal fragment in Finch's hand. The truth, Lady Voss, is like the flame itself. It glows in the dark, but it burns those who touch it. And I, Hercule Poirot, shall not rest until it is revealed." As the guests dispersed, shaken and silent, Poirot lingered, his mind racing. The locked room, the opal, the scarlet thread, each was a piece of the puzzle. But a sudden realization struck him, sharp as a blade. The maid, Mary, had spoken of betrayal. And now another betrayal had surfaced, one that threatened to unravel the manor's fragile peace. From the corridor came a faint creak, as if someone lingered just out of sight. Poirot's hand tightened on his cane. "Eh bien," he whispered, "the game grows dangerous." Chapter 7. Shadows of Betrayal. The atmosphere in Ashwood Manor had grown suffocating, as if the very walls exhaled the weight of its secrets. Hercule Poirot stood in the library, the late afternoon light casting long shadows across shelves of leather-bound tomes. The catalogues Ernest Finch had studied lay open before him, their pages marked with hurried notes in the jeweller's spidery hand. Poirot's gloved fingers traced a reference to the Opal Flame, circled in ink. Provenance disputed, possible Muggle ritual origin, curse tied to betrayal of trust. "Intéressant," Poirot murmured, his moustache twitching. "Monsieur Finch, you sought more than a gem's value, n'est-ce pas?" The library door creaked, and Lady Voss entered, her black shawl trailing like a mourner's veil. Her eyes, usually so guarded, betrayed a flicker of desperation. "Monsieur Poirot, have you found anything? The police are coming, and I fear—" She trailed off, her hands clasped tightly. Poirot turned, his gaze piercing. "You fear the past, Lady Voss. The Opal Flame, it is not merely a jewel, but a mirror of old wounds. Tell me of the betrayal that haunts you. The truth, s'il vous plaît, for a man is dead and time grows short." She stiffened, but the weight of his words seemed to unravel her resolve. She sank into a chair, her voice low. "It was my husband, Lord Reginald. 20 years ago, he strayed. There was a woman, a governess like Clara, but bolder, more cunning. She bore his child, a secret he kept until his death. The Opal Flame was her payment, or so he intended, but I refused to let it go. She vanished, and the gem stayed with me, but the shame, it never left." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And this governess, her name?" "Margaret Hail," Lady Voss whispered. "I never saw her again, but her shadow lingers. Cedric knows she was his mother's friend. He's always resented me for it. Vraiment." Poirot's mind raced. Cedric's bitterness, Clara's timidity, the maid's disappearance, all seemed to orbit this buried scandal. "And the child? Where is it now?" Lady Voss shook her head. "I don't know. Reginald swore it was sent away, raised in obscurity. But I've always feared. What if they returned? What if the Opal Flame drew them back?" Before Poirot could press further, the dinner gong sounded, its mournful tone summoning the guests. The dining room was a tableau of strained civility, the chandelier's glow doing little to warm the chill between them. Cedric swirled his wine, his smirk sharper than ever. Colonel Hargreaves stabbed at his roast, muttering about cowardly murderers. Lillian Duval, in a daring emerald gown, toyed with her necklace, her eyes darting to Poirot. Clara Henshaw sat hunched, her fork trembling, while Grayson served with mechanical precision. Poirot sipped his tisane, his silence a magnet for tension. At last he spoke, his voice soft but commanding. "Mes amis, the death of Monsieur Finch is no random act. It is a thread in a tapestry of betrayal, woven long ago. Lady Voss has shared a truth, but others remain hidden. Who among you knows of Margaret Hail?" The name landed like a thunderclap. Cedric's glass froze midway to his lips. Lillian's necklace slipped from her fingers, clattering onto her plate. Clara gasped, her face paling, while Hargreaves frowned, clearly puzzled. "Margaret Hail!" Cedric's voice was tight, his charm fraying. "Some old scandal, Poirot. Dragging up ghosts won't find your killer." Lillian recovered, her laugh brittle. "Really, Monsieur Poirot, you do love a drama. I've never heard the name." "Of you, Clara?" Clara shook her head, her eyes fixed on her plate. No, I don't know her." Poirot's smile was faint. "Curieux, yet the past, it has a way of whispering in the present. Monsieur Finch, he studied the Opal Flame's history. Perhaps he learned something inconvenient." Hargreaves slammed his fist on the table. "Enough riddles, Poirot. If you've got proof, out with it. I'm tired of this cat-and-mouse nonsense. Proof, Colonel, is like a fine wine. It requires time to mature," Poirot replied, unruffled. "But consider this, the scarlet thread in Finch's room, the scratches on the lock, the opal in his hand. These are not accidents but signatures, and I, Hercule Poirot, shall read them." The room fell silent, the weight of his words pressing on every shoulder. Grayson cleared the plates, but as he leaned near Poirot, he whispered, "Sir, the library catalogues, you asked about them. One page is missing, torn out, and I found this in the servants' hall." He slipped Poirot a crumpled note, its handwriting jagged. "The flame sees all. Trust no one." Poirot's eyes narrowed as he pocketed the note. "Merci, Grayson. The web grows tighter." As dinner ended, the guests rose, their facades crumbling under suspicion. Cedric lingered, his gaze locked on Lady Voss, while Lillian steered Clara toward the drawing-room, her arm possessive. Hargreaves stormed off, muttering about blasted foreigners. Poirot remained, his mind sifting through the evening's revelations. Margaret Hale's shadow loomed large, but another piece of the puzzle eluded him. He glanced at the portrait of Lord Voss on the wall, its opal gleaming in the painted light. "Mon ami," he murmured to the image, "what did you set in motion?" A sudden flicker caught his eye, a faint glow from the garden just beyond the terrace. It was brief, like a firefly's pulse, but unmistakable. Poirot's hand tightened on his cane. "Encore! The Opal Flame, it calls again!" He stepped toward the terrace doors, but a sharp cry from upstairs stopped him cold. A woman's voice, raw with panic. "Help! It's gone! It's gone!" Poirot's head tilted, his expression one of grim resolve. "Eh bien, the betrayals multiply. Let us see what new secret has been stolen." Chapter 8. The Second Theft. The woman's cry echoed through Ashwood Manor, sharp and desperate, pulling Hercule Poirot from the terrace doors, where the fleeting glow had vanished. His polished shoes clicked on the marble floor as he ascended the staircase, the guests trailing behind like moths to a flame. The voice had come from the west wing, and Poirot's little grey cells buzzed with anticipation. "Encore un vol," he murmured. "The opal flame, it stirs the pot of greed once more." The cry led to Lillian Duval's room, where the actress stood in the doorway, her emerald gown dishevelled, her face a mask of theatrical outrage. "It's gone!" she wailed, clutching a velvet jewellery box. "My sapphire brooch, the one I wore in the midnight rose, stolen right from my dresser." Poirot stepped into the room, his green eyes scanning the scene with surgical precision. The dresser was in disarray, drawers half open, a silk scarf dangling like a flag of surrender. The jewellery box lay empty, its satin lining mocking the absence of its prize. Cedric Voss lounged against the doorframe, his smirk barely concealed, while Clara Henshaw hovered nervously, her book clutched tightly. Colonel Hargreaves glowered, muttering about thieves in every corner. And Lady Voss stood rigid, her shawl drawn tight. "Calmez-vous, Madame Duval," Poirot said, his voice soothing but firm. "Describe this brooch, and when you last saw it." Lillian's eyes flashed, her performance dialed to perfection. "It's a star-shaped sapphire, set in gold, worth a fortune. I wore it at dinner last night, then locked it in the box before bed. I checked this morning. It was there, but now—" She gestured dramatically at the empty box. Poirot examined the box, noting the lock's pristine condition. No scratches, unlike the Opal Flame's display case. He turned to the window, slightly ajar, its latch loose. A faint scuff mark marred the sill, and a single leaf clung to the frame. "Interessant," he murmured, pocketing the leaf. "The thief, they are bold, non? To strike while a man lies dead." Cedric snorted, lighting a cigarette. "Convenient, isn't it, Lillian? A theft to distract from Finch's murder. Or are you just fishing for sympathy?" Lillian whirled on him, her voice venomous. "How dare you? I'm the victim. Here, you insolent—" "Enough!" Lady Voss's voice cut through the spat, her composure fraying. "Monsieur Poirot, this cannot continue. First the Opal Flame, now this. Are we all to be robbed blind?" Poirot's moustache twitched, a faint smile playing at his lips. "Non, Lady Voss. A pattern emerges, and Hercule Poirot sees its shape. The Opal Flame, it is the heart of this mystery, but this brooch, it is a diversion, or perhaps a test. I shall set a trap to catch our thief." He turned to Grayson, who stood silently by the door. "Grayson, announce that Lady Voss has found a clue to the Opal Flame's whereabouts, a document hidden in the library. Say it will be revealed tomorrow morning, but tonight I shall watch." Grayson nodded, his face impassive. "As you wish, sir." The guests exchanged wary glances, their unease palpable. Clara's fingers tightened on her book, while Hargreaves muttered about damned fool plans. Lillian's eyes narrowed, her outrage cooling to calculation. Cedric flicked ash from his cigarette, his gaze locked on Poirot. As the group dispersed, Poirot lingered in Lillian's room, examining the scuff mark on the sill. "Curieux," he whispered. "The mark is too clean, too deliberate. A thief who wishes to be seen, perhaps?" That night, Poirot concealed himself in the library, a shadowed alcove giving him a clear view of the room. He had instructed Grayson to leave a decoy document, a forged letter about the Opal Flame, on the desk, its wax seal gleaming under the moonlight. The manor was silent, save for the distant creak of settling beams. Hours passed, Poirot's patience unyielding. Then a faint click, the library door easing open. A figure slipped inside, cloaked in darkness, moving with the grace of a cat. They approached the desk, their gloved hand reaching for the document. Poirot's heart quickened, but he waited, his cane gripped tightly. As the figure lifted the letter, Poirot stepped from the shadows, his voice a soft thunderclap. "Arrêtez, mon ami! Hercule Poirot has caught you at last!" The figure froze, then bolted, knocking over a chair in their haste. Poirot gave chase, his small frame surprisingly agile, but the thief darted through a hidden panel in the wall. A secret passage, its entrance disguised by a bookcase. The panel slammed shut, and Poirot's fingers found only cold wood. "Trichdouille, bleu!" he exclaimed, his breath sharp. He examined the bookcase, noting a faint seam and a lever disguised as a candlestick. A manner of secrets, oui, but no secret escapes Poirot. He returned to the desk, where the decoy letter lay untouched, but a new clue caught his eye. A single pearl earring dropped in the thief's flight. Its delicate filigree gleamed, and Poirot's mind flashed to Lillian's jewellery box. Vraiment? Or is this another misdirection? As he pocketed the earring, a distant thud echoed through the manor, followed by the sound of running feet. Grayson appeared, his face pale. "Monsieur Poirot, it's the nursery. Miss Henshaw, she's found something, and she's in a state." Poirot's eyes gleamed, his resolve unshaken. "Eh bien, the thief escapes, but the flame burns brighter. Let us see what Mademoiselle Henshaw has uncovered." Chapter 9. The Truth Begins to Glow. Hercule Poirot's polished shoes echoed in the dimly lit corridor as he followed Grayson toward the nursery, the pearl earring in his pocket a tantalizing new piece of the puzzle. The manor seemed to pulse with secrets, its shadows whispering of betrayal and greed. The thud from the nursery and Clara Henshaw's distress signalled another fracture in the fragile facade of Ashwood Manor, and Poirot's little grey cells hummed with anticipation. The nursery door stood ajar, revealing Clara kneeling on the floor, her face streaked with tears. Little Emily, Lady Voss's ward, clung to her, wide-eyed and silent. Scattered around them were shards of a broken porcelain doll, its painted smile cracked in two. Clara looked up as Poirot entered, her voice trembling. "Monsieur Poirot, it was inside the doll. I didn't know." Poirot knelt beside her, his movements precise despite the urgency. Among the porcelain fragments lay a folded slip of paper, its edges yellowed with age. He lifted it carefully, noting a faint scent of lavender. "Qu'est-ce que c'est?" he murmured, unfolding it to reveal a series of numbers and letters in a cramped, unfamiliar hand. 3 to 1257, BTR. Flame hides truth. "Intéressant," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. "A code hidden in a child's toy. Mademoiselle Henshaw, how did you find this?" Clara wiped her eyes, her voice barely steady. "Emily was restless, so I gave her the doll to calm her. She dropped it, and it broke, and this fell out. I don't understand, monsieur. Why would someone hide this here?" Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind was razor-sharp. "The nursery. It is a place of innocence, oui? Yet innocence is a perfect mask for secrets. Tell me, who has access to this room?" "Only me, and sometimes Lady Voss," Clara said. The maid's clean, but I'm always here. Emily's so fragile, She faltered, glancing at the child, who clutched her hand. Poirot patted Emily's head gently, then rose, pocketing the coded note. Merci, mademoiselle. You have done. Well, stay with Emily, and speak of this to no one. As Grayson escorted Clara and Emily to a quieter room, Poirot returned to the library, his sanctuary of order amid the manor's chaos. The portrait of Lord Voss loomed above the fireplace, the painted opal flame glowing with an almost mocking intensity. Poirot's eyes narrowed as he studied it, his fingers tracing the frame. A faint irregularity caught his attention, a seam barely visible where the canvas met the wood. Eh bien, he whispered, pressing gently. A soft click sounded, and a small panel slid open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a leather-bound journal, its pages brittle with age. Poirot's heart quickened as he opened it, recognizing Lord Reginald Voss's elegant script. The entries detailed the Opal Flame's acquisition, but one passage stood out. Margaret swore the flame was no mere gem, but a key. She spoke of a ritual, a truth buried in the manor's heart. I dismissed her, but her eyes, they burned with certainty. If she returns, the flame must be protected or destroyed. Poirot's moustache twitched. A key, no, but to what lock? He cross-referenced the coded note. 3, 12, and 7, BBTR, flame hides truth. With the journal, his mind sifting through possibilities. The numbers could be a date, a location, or a cipher. The letters, perhaps initials or a word. He paced, muttering, "The flame hides truth. But whose truth?" A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Lady Voss entered, her face drawn. "Monsieur Poirot, the police have arrived. They're examining Finch's room, but they're unsubtle. Have you found anything?" Poirot held up the journal, his expression enigmatic. "A piece of the past, Lady Voss. Your husband wrote of Margaret Hail and the Opal Flame. He called it a key. What did he mean?" Her eyes widened, then darkened. "I don't know. Reginald was secretive, especially about her. He said the flame was dangerous, but I thought it was just his guilt speaking." "Peut-être," Poirot said, unconvinced. "But the code in the nursery, it suggests otherwise. Someone in this house knows more than they admit." De Voss hesitated, then spoke softly. "Cedric. He's been asking about the flame's sale. He's in debt, monsieur. Gambling, bad investments. I refused to help, but if he thought the flame could save him—" Poirot nodded, filing the motive away. "Merci, Lady Voss. Now, I must see the police. The flame's glow is brightening, and the truth draws near." The police inspector, a gruff man named Carver, was in Finch's room, barking orders at his men. He eyed Poirot with skepticism. "You're the Belgian detective, eh? Got any theories, or just stirring the pot?" Poirot's smile was polite but sharp. "The pot, Inspector, is already boiling. The locked room, it is no mystery to Hercule Poirot. The murderer entered through the fireplace. A narrow passage hidden behind the grate. The scarlet thread, it confirms the path. But the motive, that lies with the opal flame." Carver grunted, unimpressed. "Fireplace, eh? We'll check it. But I'm betting on the nephew. Shifty sort." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Peut-être. But bets, Inspector, are for gamblers, not detectives." As he left the room, Poirot's thoughts returned to the coded note and the pearl earring. Lillian's jewellery box, Cedric's debts, Clara's discovery, all were threads in a tapestry of deception. He needed one final piece to tie them together. Sudden commotion from the garden interrupted his reverie. Grayson appeared, breathless. "Monsieur Poirot, it's Mary, the maid. She's been found hiding in the old stables. But she's raving, sir, about the flame and a figure in the dark." Poirot's cane tapped the floor, his resolve like steel. "Enfin, the flame speaks again. Let us hear its confession." Chapter 10. The Final Confrontation. The drawing-room of Ashwood Manor was a stage set for revelation, its chandelier casting a golden glow over the assembled guests. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his small frame radiating authority, his green eyes gleaming like polished jade. The suspect sat in a tense semicircle. Lady Voss, her face a mask of weary resolve. Cedric Voss, his cigarette unlit, his smirk faded. Colonel Hargreaves, his moustache twitching with impatience. Lillian Duval, her emerald gown a stark contrast to her guarded expression, and Clara Henshaw, clutching her book, her eyes darting nervously. Grayson stood by the door, silent as a sentinel, while the police inspector Carver leaned against the wall, sceptical but attentive. Mary, the maid, had been brought from the stables, her bandaged forehead and trembling hands a testament to her ordeal. She sat apart, her gaze fixed on Poirot, who had promised her safety in exchange for truth. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his Belgian accent crisp and commanding, "the opal flame has burned brightly, illuminating a path of theft, murder, and betrayal. Tonight, Hercule Poirot shall reveal the truth, for the little grey cells have unravelled the tapestry of deception woven in this house." He paced slowly, his cane tapping the floor like a metronome. "Let us begin with the theft of the opal flame." The scratches on the display case lock were precise, suggesting a skilled hand. Yet the gem was not taken for wealth alone. It was a symbol, a key to a deeper secret. The glow in the garden, the scream, the opal bead, these were not accidents but a performance, designed to distract and deceive. Cedric shifted, his voice sharp. "Get to the point, Poirot. Who stole the blasted thing?" Poirot's moustache twitched. "Patience, Monsieur Voss. The thief is among us, but first, the murder of Monsieur Finch. A locked room, a blow to the head, an opal fragment in his hand. The police, they search for a simple answer, but Poirot sees the complexity. The murderer entered through a hidden passage in the fireplace, its entrance concealed by the grate. The scarlet thread, it betrayed their path. Lillian's hand touched her scarf, but Poirot's gaze moved to Clara. "Mademoiselle Henshaw, you found the coded note in the nursery. 3-12-7, EBTR. Flame hides truth. You claimed ignorance, yet your fear spoke volumes. The code, it refers to a page in Lord Voss's journal, hidden behind his portrait. The letters, BTR, stand for Betrayal's True Root. The flame, it hides a truth about Margaret Hail's child." Clara gasped, her book slipping. I didn't know. I only found the note." Poirot raised a hand. "Calmez-vous. You are not the thief nor the murderer. But you are connected, oui? The nursery, it is no coincidence. Emily, the ward, is Margaret Hail's child, hidden by Lord Voss to protect his shame. Lady Voss's face crumpled, her voice a whisper. It's true, I took her in after Reginald's death, to atone, but I never told anyone, not even Cedric. Cedric's eyes blazed. You hid my cousin? And the flame, was it hers by right? Poirot's gaze was steely. The flame, Monsieur Voss, was your obsession. Your debts drove you to steal it, no? You knew its sale could save you, but you also knew its secret. You used the hidden passages, known to you from childhood, to move unseen, planting the opal bead to mislead us. Cedric laughed, but it was hollow. Prove it, Poirot. You've got nothing but guesses. No, Poirot said, producing the pearl earring. This, dropped in the library, matches Madame Duval's collection. You and she are allies, oui? Lillian, you staged the theft of your brooch to divert suspicion, while Cedric hid the flame, waiting for a buyer. Lillian's smile was icy. You're clever, monsieur, but I'm no thief's accomplice. That earring could be anyone's. Poirot's smile was serene. Peut-être, but the note in the servants' hall, the flame sees all, trust no one, was in your handwriting, madam. You knew Cedric's plan and played your part, charming us all. Hargreaves pounded the table. What about Finch? Who killed him? I'm tired of this dancing around. Poirot turned to Mary, who shrank under the room's scrutiny. Mademoiselle, Mary, you saw the glow, heard the voice. You were struck to silence you, but you escaped. Tell us, who was in the garden? Mary's voice was faint, but clear. It was Miss Henshaw. I saw her near the fountain, holding something that glowed. She didn't see me, but someone else did. A man in the shadows. Clara's cry was raw. No, I was in the nursery, I swear. Poirot's eyes softened, but his voice was firm. No, mademoiselle, you lied about your alibi. You were in the garden searching for the flame's secret because you suspected Emily's true parentage. But you did not kill Finch, the murderer. He turned to Hargreaves. It was you, Colonel. The room erupted. Hargreaves roared, Preposterous! I'm no killer! Poirot raised a hand, silencing the chaos. You were in debt to Finch. Oui? He appraised the flame, but he also held your IOUs. You learned he was close to exposing the flame's secret, a ritual tied to a Muggle treasure hidden in the manor. You killed him to silence him, using the passage to enter and exit, locking the door with a duplicate key. Hargreaves's face reddened, but Poirot pressed on. The scarlet thread was from your smoking jacket, Colonel. The opal in Finch's hand, you placed it to suggest the curse. But Hercule Poirot sees through such tricks. Carver stepped forward, his skepticism fading. You've got evidence, Poirot? Oui, Poirot said, producing a crumpled IOU from Finch's catalogue, marked with Hargreaves's initials. This, found in the library, seals your fate. Hargreaves slumped, his bluster gone. I had no choice. Finch was bleeding, me dry. Poirot nodded, but his eyes flickered to Lady Voss. The thief, the murderer, they are unmasked. But the opal flame, it holds one final secret, no? A truth that burns brighter than all. The guests leaned forward, breathless, as Poirot's gaze lingered on the portrait of Lord Voss. The flame, it is not what it seems. And tomorrow, Hercule Poirot, shall reveal its last betrayal. A soft gasp came from the doorway, where a figure stood, unseen until now. A woman, her face obscured, clutching a glowing opal that pulsed like a heartbeat. Before anyone could react, she vanished into the corridor, her footsteps fading into the night. Poirot's cane tapped the floor, his voice low. "Eh bien, the flame has spoken. The final act begins." Chapter 11. The Flame's Last Secret. Drawing room of Ashwood Manor was cloaked in the hush of dawn, the first light filtering through heavy curtains to illuminate the faces of the gathered guests. Hercule Poirot stood before the fireplace, his small frame a beacon of calm amid the storm of revelations from the night before. The portrait of Lord Voss loomed above, the painted opal flame seeming to pulse with a life of its own. Lady Voss sat rigidly, her shawl drawn tight. Cedric Voss, his charm shattered, slouched with a scowl. Lillian Duval, her poise fraying, toyed with her necklace. Clara Henshaw clutched little Emily, her eyes red from sleepless fear. Colonel Hargreaves was absent, detained by Inspector Carver, who stood by the door, his notebook open. Mary, the maid, sat quietly, her ordeal etched in her pale face. Poirot's green eyes swept the room, his voice steady and resonant. "Mes amis, last night, Hercule Poirot unmasked a thief and a murderer. Cedric Voss stole the opal flame, driven by debt and greed. Colonel Hargreaves killed Monsieur Finch to silence a secret that threatened his ruin. But the flame, it holds one final truth, a betrayal that burns at the heart of Ashwood Manor. Today, that truth shall glow." He produced the coded note from the nursery, 3-12-7 BTR. "Flame hides truth," and held it aloft. This code, it led me to Lord Voss's journal, where he called the flame a key. But a key to what? Not treasure, none, but a secret buried in the manor's very foundations. Lady Voss's voice trembled. "Monsieur Poirot, enough! What more can there be? The flame is found, the killer caught." Poirot's moustache twitched, his gaze locking onto hers. "Non, madame. The flame you know is a lie. The true opal flame was never stolen. It was hidden by you to protect a truth you could not face." Room gasped. Cedric bolted upright, his voice sharp. "What? You're saying Aunt Eleanor faked the theft?" "Précisément," Poirot said, his tone unyielding. The gem in the display case was a replica, crafted to deceive. The real flame you kept in a hidden vault, accessible only through a passage behind this portrait. He pressed the frame's hidden seam, and the panel clicked open, revealing a small safe. Poirot opened it with a key from his pocket, taken from Finch's catalogue notes, revealing a glowing opal, its fiery heart pulsing with an otherworldly light. Lillian's eyes widened. "It's mesmerizing, but why hide it?" Poirot turned to Lady Voss, his voice gentle but firm. "Because, madame, the flame is not merely a gem. It is a relic, tied to a Muggle ritual, as Finch discovered. Its glow, it is said to reveal truth, but only to one who has betrayed their own heart. You hid it, Lady Voss, because you betrayed Margaret Hail, not by denying her the flame, but by ensuring her child, Emily, would never know her mother." Clara's sob broke the silence, her arms tightening around Emily. "You knew all this?" time you knew Emily was hers?" Lady Voss's composure shattered, tears streaming down her face. "I had to protect her." Margaret was reckless, obsessed with the flame's power. She believed it could expose Reginald's enemies, but it drove her mad. When she vanished, I took Emily, raised her as my own. The flame. I hid it to keep her safe, to end the curse. Poirot nodded, his eyes softening. "We, a mother's sacrifice, but also a betrayal. Margaret Hail did not vanish. She was here in this house until last night. The woman in the doorway, holding the replica flame, was she, none?" Mary's voice, faint but clear, confirmed it. "It was her, sir. I recognized her from old photographs in the attic. She attacked me in the garden, thinking I'd seen too much." Poirot's cane tapped the floor. Margaret Hail returned, seeking her daughter and the flame. She used the passages, known to her from her time as governess, to move unseen. The glow, the voice, these were her attempts to reclaim what was lost. But when Finch learned of the flame's ritual, he threatened to expose her, and Hargreaves silenced him. Cedric's laugh was bitter. "So it's all a family tragedy. No treasure, just guilt." "Nah," Poirot said, holding the true flame to the light. "The treasure is truth. The flame's glow, it revealed your greed, Cedric, your desperation, Lillian, your fear, Clara, and your shame, Lady Voss. But it also revealed Margaret's love for her child, a love that survived betrayal." He turned to Inspector Carver. "Margaret Hail is still in the manor, or nearby. Search the passages. She cannot have gone far." Carver nodded, barking orders to his men. Lady Voss rose, her voice broken. "Monsieur Poirot, will Emily ever forgive me?" Poirot's gaze was compassionate. "The heart, madame, is like the flame. It burns, but it also heals. Tell her the truth, and let her choose." As the guests dispersed, shaken and silent, Poirot lingered by the portrait, the flame in his hand. Clara approached, Emily in her arms. "Monsieur, will Margaret take her away?" Poirot smiled faintly. "Peut-être, but Emily has a home, oui? And you, mademoiselle, have been her true guardian." A shout from the corridor broke the moment. Carver's voice, triumphant. "We've got her! In the stables with the replica!" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Eh bien, the flame's last secret is no more. The curtain falls." Chapter 12. The Departure from Ashwood. The morning sun bathed Ashwood Manor in a soft, forgiving light, its rays filtering through the ancient oaks to dapple the gravel drive where Hercule Poirot stood, his travelling case at his side. The Rolls-Royce that had brought him to this house of secrets idled nearby, its engine a gentle hum. Poirot's grey suit was immaculate, his moustache perfectly waxed, but his green eyes held a quiet melancholy as he gazed at the Manor's Gothic facade. The case of the Opal Flame had been resolved, its truths laid bare like embers cooling after a fire. Margaret Hail, found in the stables, had confessed to her desperate quest to reclaim her daughter Emily, and the flame she believed was her birthright. Her attack on Mary, born of panic, had been a misstep, not malice. Inspector Carver had taken her into custody, but Lady Voss, in a gesture of atonement, vowed to ensure Emily's future, with Clara Henshaw as her steadfast guardian. Cedric Voss, his theft exposed, faced ruin, his charm no match for the law. Lillian Duval, her complicity unproven but suspected, had slipped away to London, her next role awaiting. Colonel Hargreaves, the murderer, awaited trial, his bluster silenced by the weight of his guilt. Poirot adjusted his hat, his thoughts drifting to the flame itself, now locked in a bank vault, its glow dimmed but its legacy enduring. He had seen its power, not in curses or rituals, but in its ability to reveal the human heart. Greed, shame, love, and betrayal had danced in its light, and Poirot, as always, had been the choreographer of their unmasking. Grayson approached, his stoic face softened by gratitude. "Monsieur Poirot, Lady Voss wishes to thank you. She's with Emily now, telling her the truth about her mother. It's a beginning." Poirot nodded, his smile faint but warm. "Oui, Grayson. The truth, it is a heavy gift, but it frees the soul. Lady Voss, she has chosen wisely." Grayson hesitated, then added, "And Miss Henshaw asked me to give you this." He handed Poirot a small folded note. Poirot opened it, reading Clara's neat script. "Thank you, monsieur, for seeing what I could not. Emily and I will be all right." Poirot tucked the note into his pocket, his heart warmed by its simplicity. Bon, the child, she has a protector, and the manor, it may yet find peace. As he climbed into the car, Poirot's gaze lingered on the manor's windows, where a curtain twitched, Clara perhaps watching him go. He thought of the opal flame, its fiery heart, a mirror of human folly. "Betrayal," he murmured to himself. "It is the shadow of love, n'est-ce pas? And yet it is love that endures." The car rolled down the drive, the manor shrinking in the distance. Poirot leaned back, his mind already turning to the letter in his case. A new invitation from a certain Captain Hastings, hinting at a mystery aboard a Mediterranean cruise. "Eh bien," he said softly, "the little grey cells, they do not rest. Another stage awaits." As the Kent countryside unfolded, Poirot closed his eyes, the glow of the opal flame lingering in his memory, a reminder that even in the darkest betrayals, a spark of truth could light the way.